So, thank you so much. It was absolutely enlightening and enchanting. Well, let aside the depth of the eyes, I should say the depth of your knowledge is absolutely unfathomable. What do you say, audience? Am I right? Taking the program forward, may I now invite Gajapati Maharaj to kindly come forward and enlighten us on the tradition of Lord Jagannath. And also, I would like to invite him here to introduce the book. And may I please announce all the audience, everyone is going to get a copy of the book on the tradition of the Lord Jagannath. A big round of applause, please, for God.
Okay, we can start now. It is 13 minutes past 8. How much time do we have? 10 minutes? I would like to get the answer from the audience. I will cut short accordingly. 15 minutes? 1 hour. I don't think you have the patience for 1 hour, would you?
Yes.
Okay, tell me when to stop. Simple. Right? Just raise your hands and I'll stop. Om Nivasaya Dityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadravayam Jagannathaya Te Namaha Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mannatha Shri Jagannatha Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarvabhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I would like to thank all the members of Oriya Samaj Singapore for having made this possible. I'm grateful to all of you for sparing your valuable time. I know how valuable time is outside of India. In India we have all the time, but it's a different story outside of India, as we all know. So I am grateful. Of course, today is a Saturday, is it not? So we have some time. And we will spend the time with the Lord. For a little while, let us forget about the work we have done today the work we have to do tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow is Sunday, but it happens that Sunday is the busiest day because all the work that we cannot do for the days of the week is piled up for a Sunday. So we forget all that and just have the Lord to ourselves. Just for maybe 1 hour. If you want it shorter, we'll make it shorter. So to continue with what our dear friend Sambit had to say, a politician's speaking words of wisdom is a rarity. So he revealed one of the greatest wisdom words of our saints, not only of India, but of saints all over the world, that what we are all looking for really is happiness. The question is, where do we find it? I believe in Singapore, I was told by the guide, Singapore is actually Singhapura. So I told the guide that I am also Singha. Okay? So Singapore is my place. So in Singapore, you find everything around the world. From Australia, from America, from England, from India, name it. So tell me, can I get just 1 gram of happiness in the markets of Singapore? In some mall? I'll ask, can you give me 1 gram of happiness? 1 kilo of happiness? Nowhere. Not in Singapore, not in London, not in New York, not in New Delhi. Why? Because that is in the domain of the Lord. Nowhere else. Sukha, and what we mean by sukha is not just a moment of happiness and then the tension of life and the problems of life and the sufferings of life come, and then again one wisp of some happiness somewhere. Could be wealth, could be this, could be that, and again there is tension and problems, sorrows. That's not the happiness that we're talking about. Yeah, we want akhanda ananda, parama sukha. Where do we get that? We are all looking for that. It could be wealth, it could be job, it could be family, it could be friends, anything, name it. All those situations are only different strategies for finding happiness. We're all in our search, each in his own way, but the one common ultimate goal is happiness, and that is to be found not in this world, but in the Lord. Not in this world, which is the world of our conception, of our perception, but in the world which is beyond and behind this perceived world, which is the true world, which is the real world, which is the permanent world. This world which we experience is a world of change. The second is over, the next second it's something else. So this is not the real world. The real world is behind that which is perceived. And in that world, there is nothing but happiness. There is nothing but bliss. How do we get there? This was the search which we are making today. This was the search that our saints made thousands and thousands of years ago. Before America was born, before Europe was born, in this motherland of yours, which we call Bharata, people like you went in search of this happiness. There was The Bharata, which was prosperous, sealed in the north by the Himalayas, down below by the great oceans, no invasions, plenty, the season on time, plenty of food for everyone, no problems. But that was not satisfying. All the material wealth, prosperity was there in ancient India, but they felt that there was something lacking. There was a void deep in their heart, and they wanted that complete satisfaction, that complete contentment, and they went in search of that happiness which is fulfilling, which is permanent, which is eternal. They went in that search, and that search was inward. It was not a search in the world outside, because they knew, they saw everything, they experienced everything, and found that it was not there. Then they started on the inward journey, went deeper and deeper, and ultimately found what they were looking for. This, my friends, is the legacy of your ancestors, of your heritage, of your history. The legacy of the rishis, the legacies of the Mahapurushas, who went in that search, in that quest, and finally attained it. Not through an outward journey, but through an inward journey. And having attained that, everything was fulfilled. So India, or Bharata, is the land of rishis. And it is the land of the Adhyatma Vidya or Atma Vidya or the Brahma Vidya, which is nothing but the sum total of their wisdom, of this great journey and its ultimate realization. This is the wealth that we are all looking for. This is the wealth which the world needs today when we are lost in this physical world of materialism, of material manifestations. So the time has come, my friend, to go back in a long journey into the past, into the dim distant past, into the ancient Indian heritage, and find out what it is all about. So should we start the journey? Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, the glory of Lord Jagannath, correction, it's not written the glory of Lord Krishna. So who is this Jagannatha? Now, we are all from India, I think. We are all from India. Now we know Lord Krishna, we know Lord Shiva, we know Lord Ganesha, we know Devi Durga. All the gods and goddesses, we know something more or less. But who is this Jagannatha? Yes, well, he has this funny looking expression and appearance, but who is he? Question mark. So that's the little mystery we will try to explore today within a very short time. Now, the explanation, the clarification about who the Lord is, in our tradition, we have faith in the declarations of the realized saints, the Mahapurushas. Those who have proceeded on that journey, inward journey, and having attained the ultimate realization, they come down to us and reveal the truth, reveal the identity of that ultimate goal which we are all seeking. And that comes down to us by way of our scriptures. So the identity, the leelas of our gods and goddesses we authentically receive from our ancient scriptures, which is nothing but the experience of our great spiritual masters, the acharyas. And we believe it to be true because that was their direct experience. It was an experience which was not clouded by the material ignorance which is clouding all of our vision. It was an experience of the direct truth, which is called aparoksha anubhuti, an experience which is there when the mind and the intellect are transcended. There is something which is there, and that is something which is not imaginary, not illusory, but it is a definite experience. So having experienced that, they come and tell that this is what it is. So about Lord Rama, we have the Ramayana. Lord Krishna, we have the Srimad Bhagavata Mahapurana. Devi Mahatmya for the Lord Devi's glory, etc. What about Lord Jagannatha? How do we come to know him? What is the source? What is the authority? Now, as we all know, I think, that our religion, which is known as Sanatana Dharma or Sanatana Vedic Dharma, is rooted in the Vedas, the four Vedas, as we know. Now, there is a reference to Lord Jagannatha in the first Veda, which is Rig Veda, which is the earliest religious exposition of mankind. So there is this shloka in Rig Veda in the 10th chapter, Ado Yaddaru Plavate Sindhu Pare, which in English, Sayanacharya was a great Vedic commentator in the 14th century. He connects this shloka with Lord Jagannatha or Lord Purushottama. Purushottama is the name of Lord Jagannatha. In fact, the word Jagannatha is used later, but the earliest references to Lord Jagannatha is Purushottama. So Sayanacharya says, he interprets that shloka as saying that there exists on the seashore in a far off place the image of a deity of the name Purushottama, which is made of wood, floating as it were in the sea. By worshipping that word indestructible, attain the supreme place of the Vaishnavite. The same thing is also said in the Atharva Veda. However, the Vedas actually are, they've got different kandas, and the Jnana Kanda or the Upanishads give the ultimate highest wisdom, but we don't get really the legend of our gods and goddesses in the Vedas. Those are direct experience of the realized saints, but the legends of the gods and goddesses are seen in the Puranas. Vedavyasa Maharshi, who compiled the Vedas, found it necessary to expose the legend and the great mystery of our gods and goddesses more explicitly through the Puranas. So among the Puranas, the 18 major Puranas, we have several Puranas which mention about Lord Jagannatha. We have Matsya Purana, Vishnu Purana, Agni Purana, Padma Purana, Narada Purana, Brahma Purana and Skanda Purana. They all mention in different ways about the heritage or the legend of Lord Jagannatha. However, the Skanda Purana is the most elaborate. Apart from the Puranas, number of other Sanskrit scriptures also mention about or explain the legend of Lord Jagannatha. And then many other writings are there of the subsequent devotees in the 14th and 15th century about Lord Jagannatha. We will not go into all that. I would like to confine my presentation to Purushottama Kshetra Mahatmya, which is a portion of Skanda Purana. Now, Skanda Purana is the most voluminous of our Puranas, and it's among the one of the 18 major Puranas, and it contains the glories of all the places of pilgrimage of Bharata. So it has got different parts, Maheshwara Khanda, this Khanda and that Khanda, out of which Vaishnava Khanda is the second part of this Skanda Purana. And in this Vaishnava Khanda, we have Purushottama Kshetra Mahatmya or Utkala Khanda, which is the glory of Purushottama Kshetra, the Kshetra of Lord Purushottama. And this is about 60 chapters containing about 3,863 shlokas. The story begins like this: as with all the Puranas, Puranic literature, you have a realized saint, a Mahapurusha, who is answering a question of his disciples. You see, all our literature, our sacred religious literature, has been in the form of samvada. Guru Shishya Parampara, Shishya asking a question to the Guru, the realized master. And these masters were Trikardarshis. Like what we are going to hear now. It's impossible for us to really make sense of it if we are to use our little intelligence. Our little intelligence, because even science agrees that we really utilize a very tiny fraction of our total mental capacity. Now the Mahapurushas expanded their mental functioning to a different level altogether through this inward journey, and they could know what has happened in the distant past. They could also know what is going to happen in the future. So they were Trikardarshis, these Mahapurushas. So it so happened that somewhere in a remote forest, this Maharshi Jaimini, long time back, now we don't know when it is in the Skanda Purana, that he is asked by his disciples who are assembled there, that please tell us about this. We heard that the Lord has manifested in Purushottam Dham Puri. Puri was a subsequent use, but it's actually Purushottama Kshetra, Purushottama Dhama, in a wooden form. Now that's very surprising, and in a form that we can't understand. So could you tell us how this happened? We would like to know about it. So we have the entire legend of Lord Jagannath and about his manifestation being explained by Maharshi Jaimini to his disciples in a forest, maybe Naimisaranya. And the story begins like this. As I was saying, that we have to just drop our intellect right now. If we start questioning and trying to find logic and reasoning through our little intellect, we will fail. So please drop your mind and intellect right now to proceed further, and otherwise admission not granted. So we have Lord Brahma. As we all know, Lord Brahma is the creator of everything that has been created. And Lord Brahma himself is created by Paramatma, Parameshwara. Now here you find Lord Brahma praying to Vishnu. Now Vishnu here is not an aspect of the totality, like you got Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Okay? So they are aspects of the totality. When you put them together, then they become the supreme, paramount, ultimate Godhead. So the one who is supreme. So the one becomes three to perform the different functions of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. But when the three are put together, it becomes the one supreme God, who is worshipped by all religions around the world and who is invoked by all scriptures around the world without fail. So here we have Vishnu on the Garuda, but he is not the Vishnu of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. He is the Mahavishnu, Paramavishnu, that is the supreme God. Why? Because Lord Brahma, he has created the universe, universe lasts for X number of time, and at the end of time, that is to say, when the day of Brahma comes to an end. Now the day of Brahma is not the human day, okay? I will come to that a little later. When the day of Brahma comes to an end, the night time of Brahma begins, which is as long as the daytime. There's complete dissolution. Everything goes to Hiranyagarbha, to the causal state. And then again, when the night is over, the day manifests and the Brahma has to create again. Now Brahma says, what a big joke. I've been doing it, and what's the use? I'm tired of it. Is there any way of ending this drama? Huh? Because I'm creating, and then there is dissolution, and again I have to create, and again there's dissolution. I'm tired of it. So how can this come to an end? Why should beings be born and then go through all this suffering? Because it is dukkhalaya, shashvatam. It is nothing but misery in this world. There is no happiness. Brahma knows it, of course. He is the originator of the Vedas, so he knows very well nothing but dukkha. Why I give birth to creatures and they suffer and then they die. Then again I have to create again. So why not everyone get liberated and finish off with the job? Okay, I don't have to create again. So who will tell me this? Who will find the solution to this eternal problem? There is no one but the ultimate creator. So Lord Brahma prays to that ultimate God, and he appears in the form of Mahavishnu on Garuda. Naturally, when the son is praying, the father has to appear. No, he's got no choice. So Mahavishnu appears and says, Brahma, okay, you're praying, fine, and I've come. Now what do you want? So Brahma says, look, Lord, this is my predicament. How can this come to an end? Now Lord Vishnu has a problem. He says, well, this is my law. This is my law, and this is what I have set rolling. Now how can I contradict my own regulation, my own principles? However, the Lord says, let's do one thing. You go to a place on this planet Earth, just like you're seeing me here in Vaikuntha Dham or wherever it is. You will find me there. And there, when you go there, you'll also get the answer. So Lord Brahma said, okay, let me go there. So Lord Brahma then comes down to this planet Earth, and the location which Lord Vishnu has said. Now here, let me just clarify. Mahavishnu, as I said, he is Paramatma, Parameshwara, Param Brahma. Not Krishna or Shiva or Brahma or Durga or Ganesha. He is Paramatma, Parameshwara, Param Brahma, the Supreme God, who comes in different yugas as avatars. So when we refer to Mahavishnu, please connect with Paramatma, Parameshwara, Param Brahma, the Supreme God. Okay, am I clear? Okay, not an avatara, but the avatari. Okay? So Brahma comes here to Purushottam Dham. Now when I say Purushottam Dham, relate to Puri. It's in short called Puri. Actually the name is Purushottama Puri or Jagannath Puri. But the Britishers came and they could not pronounce Purushottam Puri or Jagannath Puri. So Puri. So Puri became just like Singapura becomes Singapore. So okay. So here, Lord Brahma comes here and he has darshan of Lord. And the Lord has said, you'll see me just as you have seen me here. So what he sees is a huge Nirachala Parvata, all forest, just like Singapore is green, it was all green. And under a huge banyan tree, Lord Madhava, Sankha Chakra Gada Padmadhari, and he is in Neelamani Vigraha. Neelamani means blue sapphire gemstone, but not that he is like a stone. He's living, completely living, divine form. And Mahalakshmi to his left, strangely Mahalakshmi holding Veena, and Shesha Ananta behind, and Garuda, and Garudaji is here, and this is Sudarshana, assuming a human form over here, praying to the Lord. And so his Lord Brahma, he comes and naturally prays to Lord Madhava, that is Lord Vishnu, and tells the Lord, now give me the answer. I prayed, now I've come here all the way from my Brahmaloka to this place, God-forsaken place. Now you have to tell me, how do I solve the issue? But just then what happens? One crow somehow comes flying, and there is this, you can see this little pond here. You can see this lotus flower here. There is this pond, this is Rohini Kunda, which if those who have gone to Jagannath temple, you'll find a replica or a symbol of it. This is where when at the end of creation of the entire created world goes back into causal state. That is called the Hiranyagarbha. So that is, this is the Rohini Kunda. So the crow comes, is tired, and wants to drink water. So it comes down into the water, takes a dip in the pond. And then Brahma sees something most extraordinary. What happens? The crow looks up, has darshan of Lord Madhava, and assumes a form just like Lord Madhava, Chaturdha Murti, he becomes, and ascends to the heavens. Brahma is surprised. How come a very lowly creature, a carrion, a crow, becomes divine? If a crow can become divine merely by having darshan of the Lord, what to speak of human beings? Now Brahma says, oh, I did not know that such a thing existed in this creation. That naturally Lord is in Vaikuntha, let us say Param Dham, wherever he is. Now, people cannot go in their physical body there, but here on this planet, yes, they can come to Purushottam Dham and see him. So if a crow by mere darshan, darshanat mukti, is liberated, now I am going to spread the word around with my drum. And everyone can come, have darshan of the Lord and get liberated. So darshanat mukti, all their vasanas, all their karmas get burnt, just like the crows. And if your vasanas are burnt, the cause is gone, the effect will not be there, there will be no birth, right? We are here because of our desires. In many, many past births, all the actions that we have done and all the vasanas that we have collected is the cause of our coming here again to fulfill that. But when those desires have disappeared, have been burnt out, there is no question of coming back again, because there is no cause, there will be no effect. So, it is well, if the crow can make it, everyone can make it. So I'm going to spread the word around. But then, what happens? Lord Yama comes running. Lord Yama comes, my Lord, what you have done? What will happen to my department? If everyone comes and gets liberated, who is going to come to me? I am the Lord of Death. I am supposed to give the people of this created universe the rewards or the punishment when they are leaving their bodies and then they go to the next body. So I am in charge of that, but everyone is going through shortcut. Liberation, direct liberation. What will happen to my department? It will close down. Why have you made me? Now Lord Vishnu again has a problem. Now, when the husband has a problem, what does he do? Passes on the problem to the wife. Right? That's why the wife is known as better half. So Lord Vishnu, as you can see, is looking at Mahalakshmi. Now you better handle the situation. Otherwise, Lord Brahma is going to fight it out with Lord Yamaraj, and then there will be major issues. So Mahalakshmi says, okay, Yamaraj, what you're saying makes sense. After all, Brahma has got a function and a responsibility, a divine role. You also have a divine role. But let me tell you, we cannot leave this place. We cannot leave this place. Just like in Vaikuntha, in this Paramdham, the Lord is eternally present. In the created world, in this place, Purushottam Dham, He is eternally present. He cannot leave this place and go. Okay? So then, to explain that, Mahalakshmi goes and tells the story of how during the night time of Lord Brahma, when there's complete dissolution, you see, during the Chaturyuga's finishing there is a mini pralaya, but during the night time of Brahma, there is complete dissolution. The universe totally ceases to exist. It goes into causal state. Now, when that happens, this abode, Purushottam Dham, the tree, the Kalpa tree, and the Lord and me, we do not go. We stay here. And Maharishi Markandeya, just like Hanumanji, they are Chiranjeevis. So, when there was total dissolution, Markandeya did not find any place for shelter because there's all water, pralaya, jala. So, swimming, he came and found shelter at our feet. So, this is just to explain to you that we are there. Even during Mahapralaya, we don't go. So, what do we do now? However, to somehow save the situation, Mahalakshmi says, okay, Yamaraj, we cannot dissatisfy you. We cannot dissatisfy Lord Brahma either. Therefore, compromise. Let's have a settlement. We will cease to manifest in this way, but we will re-manifest in another form, by which there will not be instant mukti, darshanat mukti, it will be krama mukti. The place will have its glory and the Lord's grace will be there, but not like this. And that will happen in due course. So with that settlement, both Brahma is happy and Yamaraj is happy, and then they go back. This is curtains dropping on the first part. Now we travel travel forward in time again, and we come to the 51st year of this Lord Brahma. Now, there are many Brahmas which come and go. Now, the time of this Lord Brahma who is there now, we are in his, which year? 51st year, which is known as Svetavaraha Kalpa. Kalpa means day of Brahma. So in this Kalpa, this day of Brahma which is going on now, we are on the 51st day. Okay? And in the and now we are in the time period of the 7th Manu. Very mind-boggling. Okay? But we have to travel back to the time of the first Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, to begin the story of Lord Jagannatha. Now, the first 50 years of Lord Brahma's life, the Supreme Lord was in Purushottam Dham in the form of Madhava. And because he was in Nilamani Vigraha, he was known as Nila Madhava. Now Lord said that, okay, because of this understanding or this arrangement which we had to do with Lord Brahma and Lord Yamaraj, the next 50 years we will re-manifest as Lord Jagannath, Balabhadra and Subhadra in another form. So beginning with the 50th year, the Lord has to re-manifest in this new form. So in the beginning of this 50th year, we now travel to the time of the first Manu, and the story begins in Avanti. The story begins in Avanti, in the country of Malwa, which is Rajasthan, South Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, North Madhya Pradesh, and there was a ruler called Indradyumna. Now this is the time period of the first Manu. I'll come to that when that is, we'll just have a look at that. But there was a ruler who was not ruler of India, but ruler of the entire known world on this planet Earth, and all the other rulers were acknowledging his suzerainty and his sovereignty. And he was there in the Satya Yuga of the second Chatur Yuga of the first Manu, whose name was Swayambhuva Manu, in this Kalpa, in this day. We are now in the Kali Yuga of the 28th Chatur Yuga of Vaivasvata Manu, who is the 7th Manu. And if we have to go back, how many years, human years? It is 196 crore human years from now we are talking about, okay? However, as I said, you have to drop your mind and intellect. Now, don't question. If we try to analyze, find historical evidence, you'll find none. You just have to have faith in the words of the rishis, who are Trikaladarshis, okay? So now we travel back in time. This is the calculation in the Shastras, in the various Shastras, in the Bhagavata Mahapurana, in the Jyotish Shastras and all that. Let's not bother about it. The calculations come. Now, I'll just skip all this to save time. Now, these are the 14 Manus who are there in one Manvantara. Again, I'll skip all this. We are talking about the time of Swayambhuva Manu, and we are now in the time period of the Vaivasvata Manu, 7th Manu. We'll just skip all this and we'll go to Avanti. Now, the time period of the first Manu, the king Indradyumna has got his capital here in Avanti, which is modern Ujjain. And he was the paramount ruler of the entire known world at that time. And here we have Jagannath Puri, which is here. Now, King Indradyumna, having attained the highest glory of his imperial prowess, acquisitions, and conquests and wealth, he says that there's nothing more I need to achieve, attain. I've attained everything that I need. However, there's one thing that I would like to fulfill to make my life complete, that is to serve the Lord. I don't want to serve the Lord in the sense that I pray to Him in the temple, I offer Him worship in the temple, but I want to worship the Lord not in the form of an image as a deity, but the Lord Himself. So one day, he called all his, Pandits, scholars, all the learned people of his big empire in his in the temple, after he had his darshan, and asked them, please tell me where Lord is. Temples I have, even my kingdom I've got temples, no shortage of temples, but I want to worship Lord Himself. Is there a place in the world, on this known world or in this creation, where I can see and worship the Lord Himself? Everyone is quiet because no one has the answers. Suddenly, in the gathering, one old person with matted hair stands up. Very old person, and no one knows him. Suddenly, this person appears and says, "Oh King, I know where the Lord resides. Lord Himself resides, not an image of the Lord, but the Lord Himself." This is Indradyumna. And he says, there is a place in the eastern coast of India, and it is Purushottam Dham. I have traveled many places, and then finally I saw the Lord Himself there. That is the Lord Nilamadhava. And I worshipped Him and received His grace. And then he narrated the story, all the glory of Lord there. And then suddenly He disappears. Everyone is dumbfounded. And the king sees this as a divine sign, and his complete faith that this is nothing but a divine manifestation. This is the Lord Himself telling him what to do. So the king then tells his Rajguru, this is his Rajpurohit, that please help me locate that place which was mentioned by this old magic person, this traveler, and I will go and spend rest of my life doing nothing but serving the Lord. So then the Rajguru says, no problem, we will send all our emissaries and spies and we will locate that place for you. So the people are sent in the direction which they have understood from the person. And the Raj Purohit's younger brother, whose name was Vidyapati, he comes exactly in the direction of Purushottam Dham, Puri, and he has reached Puri, that is to say Odisha. Then it was known as Kalinga, whatever name it was, Udra Desha or Utkala or Kalinga, different names which are given to Odisha in ancient history. And he is lost. There's nothing but dense forest, and he is not able to get any clue. He is tired and he sits down under a tree to rest. Suddenly he hears faint sounds, some people speaking, and he comes to a village, a tribal village. They are known as Sabaras. And he talks to them, and then by and by the chief of the village comes, greets him, and says, what are you looking for? You look like someone from a very high lineage. And then he discloses his identity. I am the younger brother of the royal priest of the Maharaja Indradumna. And actually the tribal people have heard of the great king Indradumna, so they treats him with a lot of respect and offers him food. And the Vidyapati says, sorry, I am not taking any food at all unless my mission is accomplished, because I have to go back and report to the king. And I am not going to do that until I am not going to eat any food till my mission is accomplished. Then the tribal chief, whose name is Viswabasu, he is in a fix, says, well, I have to tell him the secret then. Because it was only this Viswabasu who knew where Lord Madhava was. No one on this planet Earth, no human beings knew about the presence of Lord Madhava on the hilltop. So it was only Viswabasu who would go up, and the Lord Madhava was being worshipped by the gods and goddesses. Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Lord Indra, Lord Varuna, all the devatas would come and worship the Lord. Lord was not being worshipped by human beings. And this Viswabasu would hide in fear. And when the gods and goddesses would go back to the domains after worship, he would quietly go pick up the prasadam, bring it down to the village, and they would all eat. And because they were eating this prasadam, which is we now know as Mahaprasada, they would live long life of disease-free and in bliss. So he knew where the Lord was. But when the Brahmin said that, look, I'm going to give up my life if I don't see the Lord, I will not go back, and neither will I eat any food. So then the Sabara chief said, no, this will be a great sin. This is the sin of Brahma Hatya. Killing a Brahmin will be upon me. So I have to tell him. So he tells it, okay, I will take you to the Lord. You come with me. So let's go quickly because night is falling. So he holds him by the hand and takes him up a very difficult path up the hill. Dense forest, and there's a very small track, very difficult to access. And they reach the top of the hill, and then they have darshan of Lord Nilamadhava. The Vidyapati prays to the Lord, and that is Viswabasu here, and this is Vidyapati. And after the prayer, the tribal chief gives the Lord's garland, which is here Nirmalya, it is known as Nirmalya, to Vidyapati, and then they come back, and then next day, he says, I am not going to waste a single day, I am going back to Avanti Nagari to give this good news to the king, because the king is just waiting for this. So he goes back. After seeing the place where the king will come and pitch his tent and camp and all that, Vidyapati immediately drives back to Avanti Nagari. But then what happens, as soon as he is leaving, a huge sandstorm takes place. A holocaust sort of a thing, and the entire hill is covered with sand. And Lord Madhava, Mahalakshmi, Shesha, Ananta, as we see them here, are not seen anymore. And this is not known to anyone. Of course, the Devatas know it and then they go and complain to Lord Brahma. But Lord Brahma assures them that don't worry, Lords will re-manifest as they have already said. Now, our Pujari, he comes to Avanti Nagari and he is glowing with radiance because he's had divine darshan, he's liberated actually. And the Nirmali is also glowing and the king is fascinated and totally, excited about all this. And he hears the entire narration from Vidyapati, and the Vidyapati gives the Nirmalya to the king, and who feels the vibration, the divine vibrations, and the king has no doubt that finally he has found out where the Lord is. And he says, without any delay, let's proceed. Those who want to come along with me may come along. He open invitation to the entire, his entire retinue, his entire kingdom. So the king then proceeds to Puri. As he's leaving, Devarishi Narada arrives. He's been sent by Lord Brahma. You see, in the lineage, as the Shastra says, King Indradumna is in the lineage of Lord Brahma, and as you know, Devarishi Narada is the descendant of Lord Brahma, or the sons of Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma knows that Lord Madhava is no longer there. And this king has completely kept his life at balance for the Lord. And if he does not see the Lord, he is not going to survive. And then the whole game will fall through. The Lord's Leela will not come through. So, Lord Brahma sends Narada to take care of the king in this very difficult time. And Devarishi Narada comes and says, look, king, you have started on a good mission, and I know what you are looking for, and I will come with you to ensure that you are successful. So, the king naturally receives and prays to Devarishi Narada, and the whole night they are having satsang. And there's a very nice chapter here. This is the 10th chapter in the Skanda Purana, which deals about Bhakti Yoga. 4 types of Bhakti Devarishi Narada explains to King Indradumna. Just like Narada Bhakti Sutra, this is a very high exposition of Bhakti Tattva. Again, we will not go into that. And then they start the journey, and transgressing or completing the journey, they enter Mahanadi and enter into the Udra-desha, that is Utkal Pradesh or Odisha, and they have the king of Udra, king of Utkal, here, who is here, coming to receive King Devarishi Narada and Indradumna, and then the king of Utkal leads them, and they are all very happy and they are proceeding ahead. Then on the way they have darshan of Lord Lingaraja, Kotilingeshwara, and this is Indradumna praying to Lord Kotilingeshwara, that is Lord Lingaraja, which is Bhubaneswara, those who have been there. And while the king is praying, the king does not have the darshan. Lord Shiva manifests, and Devarishi Narada, of course, can see Lord Shiva and has darshan of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva says that, look, you better take care of this guy, because if he does not know that Lord Madhava is not there anymore, and it can be dangerous, because he can just give up his life. So you take care of him and see that everything is okay. So then they proceed ahead. Now when they reach Jagannath Dham, the Purushottam Dham Puri, and the king says, Indradumna says, now let's go up and have darshan of the Lord. I have come all the way. Then Narada says, hold it. Now you see what has happened. Now Narada has to disclose the truth, that the Lord is not there anymore. And on hearing that, Indradumna collapses and is about to give up his life, because the whole thing comes as a big shock. His total life was in having darshan and serving the Lord, and he's given up everything. This is the only thing he wants in life. Now let me tell you, this is a very strong reminder to us of what the goal of our life should be. Jagannath Swami Nayana Pathagami Bhavatu me. This should be Lord Indradumna, having attained all the glory, all the wealth, says, no, this is not what life is meant for, human life is meant for. This is not what is satisfying me. This is the Lord's darshan, and Lord's service is the only thing that human life is really worth living for. The other things, eating, sleeping, drinking, procreating, etc., all other life forms, from plants to animals to birds to beasts, everything is done by them as by human beings. What is that for which human life is made? It is this. Bhagavad Sakshatkar, Atma Anubhuti, whatever you may call it, whatever name you may give it. But this is the only thing that human life is worth living for. And he says that if Lord is not there, there's no point in living even a fraction of time. So he is about to give up his life. But Devrishi Narada knows that he cannot die. He is to be kept alive. So through his powers, Devrishi Narada revives Indradumna and says, look, look, look. Lord has disappeared in the form of Madhava, but Lord Brahma has sent me here, and I have come specifically to tell you that you have to perform 1,000 Ashwamedha Yajnas here in this Purushottam Dham, in this sacred place, and then the Lord will re-manifest, because this is his promise. He cannot leave this place, but for that you have to perform the yajna. So Indradumna has complete faith in the words of Devrishi Narada, and performs the yajna. He is the best, and here Devrishi Narada is telling Indradumna, look, Lord Brahma has told me that Lord will manifest, so don't worry. Sorry, I've gone backwards. This is the Indradumna going up the hill and finding the Lord is not there, okay? Devrishi Narada then actually takes Indradumna up the hill and shows him the place exactly where the Lord was there. And the Lord is not there anymore. But he says that don't worry, you have to perform Ashwamedha Yajna. So the king performs Ashwamedha Yajna, and all the Devatas also come. This is Lord Indra coming and blessing the Yajna, and it is a huge Yajna, Ashwamedha Yajna, which takes place very close to the place where those who have been to Puri, you may have seen the temple called Gundicha Mandira. Gundicha temple, where the chariots of the Lords go for the Rath Yatra, and the Lords stay there for 7 days. Why? Because that's the place where the Lords manifested, re-manifested. So near that place, there is this huge yajna which takes place, and the king and queen perform the yajna, Ashwamedha Yajna. Towards the end, as the yajna is coming to an end, the previous night, the king, in his early morning meditation, you see, this is again a reminder of our great culture. The kings were setting the example of what our Vedic culture was. They would get up in the morning and do their, in Brahma Muhurta, that is 4 o'clock in the morning, they would do their puja, their dhyana, their japa, their swadhyaya. This is Puranic, but let me tell you, in history also this has happened. This is the example which our leaders set for us then. So we have to ask Sambit, what is the example our leaders today set for us now? Okay? So this was the example. As the people in the top do, so others at the bottom follow. Okay? So this is your great culture. This is the great, the highest objective which is put before us as the goal of life, as the ultimate aim of life, which will give us happiness, true happiness. So the king, as he is doing his dhyana, he suddenly has this vision of Kshira Samudra, a divine ocean, and the Lord's there, and Lord Brahma praying to Lord Vishnu and Mahalakshmi and all the others worshipping. So he is perplexed, and he asks Lord Narada, Devrishi Narada, I had this dream, what does it mean? Devrishi Narad says, don't worry, this is a good omen, maybe something is going to happen. So the same day, because the yajna is now almost complete, suddenly the workers or the staff of the king, the royal staff, they come running to the king. King, oh king, we see something very extraordinary on the sea. There's something floating out there which we can't understand. So Devrishi Narad says, okay king, let's go now. So they come there and they see, what do they see? In the ocean, this is a place very close to Chakratirtha. Those who have been to Puri, there's a place called Chakratirtha. Where there's a river called Banki River, and that would come and meet the sea. That's the Bay of Bengal, Puri. And there they found a huge tree which was glowing like a divine light, a divine glow. And it had 3 huge branches, and the end of the tree they could not see. It's such a huge thing floating on the water, on the ocean. So the Narada says, okay, this looks like Lord's blessing. So you please bring the tree onto the shore and worship the tree in an altar, make an altar and worship. So by and by we will come to know what's to be done. So the king gets all his people to bring the tree. And here the story is also that they couldn't bring the tree out, so they get the originals, worshippers of Lord, the Sabara worshippers, to come and help them. And then with their help they get the tree onto the mandap, they make a mandap. And then the question is, how can they worship a tree? They have to have a wonderful, because you see, this whole narration is in the Vishnu Purana. It is not in the Maheshwara Purana or in the Devi Purana. It is in the Vishnu Purana, that is to say, the Supreme Lord, Paramatma Parameshwara, is seen as Mahavishnu. So here, the king is saying, let us have a very nice image of Vishnu made out, so we can worship. That is a normal Hindu or the Vedic tradition. So he gets all the best craftsmen of his kingdom to come and make a beautiful image of Lord Vishnu. But they all fail because none of their instruments will make any dent on this thing which looks like a tree. You know, the instrument would get blunt, get broken. So the king has again a problem. But then after some time there's a divine voice saying to king, don't worry, there'll be an elderly person, an old person coming, and you allow him to do the job. So by and by an old person comes and he requests the king. The king says, fine, you go ahead. So the old man says that, look, there's a condition that I am not to be disturbed, the chamber is to be closed up until the job is complete, no one is to enter. So the king says, fine, no problem. So he goes in, they close the chamber, and for some time they hear some sound coming. So good, all right, something is happening inside. But then day 1 goes, day 2 goes, day 3 goes, and day 15 has come. The king says, oh, the fellow hasn't come out, and he's not got any food to eat inside, and we also don't hear any sound. So has the old man passed away? So they open it. So the king says, no, open it. So when they open it, oh sorry, I'm forgetting to move the slides. So this is the divine tree. They are brought on an altar and they're worshipping. And when they open, the Lord has manifested in this way. And they are totally stupefied, unable to understand what is this appearance. Strange appearance. But the Lord has appeared in this way. So here is Maharaja Indradumna, and Devrishi Narad says, well, the Lord has appeared in this way. And then there is a divine voice saying, O king, do not worship me like this. You have to see that no one sees me in this form. You have to cover me up with various layers of various sort of ingredients, and finally the cloth, and then worship me. So the king does that, whatever has been ordained, and then they start worshipping the Lord. Now this is Lord's manifestation as Lord Jagannath, Balabhadra and Subhadra. And the question is how and why he appeared in this form. Okay? He could have appeared as Lord Krishna if he was Krishna. He could have appeared as Lord Vishnu if he was Vishnu. He could have appeared as Lord Shiva if he was Shiva. He could have appeared as Lord Ganesha if he was Lord Ganesha. The point is, why like this? So for this we have to go to the Vedas. Now if we, those who have studied the Upanishads will find this very famous verse in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, Apani Pado Yavano Grahita, etc., which means, now the Upanishads is the concluding portion of each of the four Vedas, and that contains the highest philosophical and spiritual wisdom truth. That's the highest experience. There's nothing but the truth, the ultimate truth, without any camouflage, without any coverings. So here, your greatest Mahapurushas, your greatest realized saints are telling you what the truth is. So this is a very famous line of the Upanishad which says, which in English says, He, the Supreme Being. Here the Supreme Being again is Paramatma, Parameshwar, Param Brahma, the Allah of the Muslims, the Father in heaven of the Christians, etc. He, the Supreme, and the Krishna or Vishnu or Shiva or Devi of the Sanatana Dharma tradition, He, the Supreme Being, is without hands, feet, and yet moves and grasps. He sees, though without eyes. He hears, though without ears. He knows whatever is to be known, and of Him there is no knower. They speak of Him as the first, the Purusha, and the great. So here we have Lord Jagannatha, and really speaking, He doesn't have eyes and ears as we understand. He is a form, there is a form, and yet what form it is beyond our imagination. He is the form, He is also the formless. In other words, He is all forms, and He is also beyond all forms. So this is really unique, When you talk of Lord Rama, you identify with a particular form. When you talk of Lord Krishna, you identify with a particular form. Lord Ganesha, Devi Durga. But here, He's all the forms put together and even beyond. So, in Kaivalya Upanishad also we have a similar stanza which says a similar thing. I am without hands and legs, of incomprehensive power. I see without eyes, hear without ears, devoid of all forms. I am knowing everything, and there is none that knows me. I am ever pure knowledge, Sachidananda Swarupa. None that knows me in the sense that the organs of perception that we have or any created being has cannot know the supreme reality, the supreme truth, because that is beyond the mind and intellect. But the great Mahapurushas, as I said, having transcended the mind and intellect, have direct realization of that. That's why it's called direct realization of or direct experience. We are all having indirect experience. Indirect means through the agency, through the medium of our mind and intellect. All our experience, the experience of the world around us, is through our mind and intellect, as reported by our 5 sense organs of perception. But the Mahapurushas, when they drop the mind and intellect through this inward journey, through a process of what is known as Antakarana Shuddhi, inner purification, when desires have come to an end, and the mind, because there are no desires anymore, the vicissitudes, the fluctuations of the minds come to an end, and the mind is absolutely still. That which is beyond the mind gets revealed. That happiness which is all the time existing is experienced. So our great Mahapurushas actually have an experience of that supreme bliss, of that transcendental truth, and then they come and give us these experience in the form of these mantras. So anyway, coming back to our story, the king is then instructed by Devrishi Narada that look, the time has come now for the installation of the Lords in the temple, and so you have to build a huge temple for the Lord, befitting temple for the who? For Jagannatha, Purushottama, the Lord of the universe. So Indradumna gets all the kings of his kingdom to contribute in every way, and he builds a temple which in the Shastra is written as 1,000 cubits, which is 1,500 feet high, 1,500 feet high. That was the first temple of Lord Jagannath, built in exactly the same place that the temple stands. But this temple was built when? In the time of the first Manu. 196 crore human years from now. So that temple is gone, many of the temples have come, and we have the present temple which is only 800 years old. So, this is the first temple built by King Indradumna, the Adi Mandira of Lord Jagannath. And then according to Devrishi Narada's instruction, Narada says that no one other than Lord Brahma has to come and install Lord Jagannath, Balabhadra, Subhadra in this temple. So I will go up and invite Lord Brahma down to come and do this, because Lord Brahma has said so. Then Maharaja Indradumna prays to Devrishi Narada, "Oh Devrishi Narada, you are definitely very fortunate, but I would like to go with you to personally invite, because I am the host." Now, it's not possible for someone with a human body to go up to Brahmaloka, but Devrishi Narada has the power, because he is none other than a form of the Lord himself. So, all right, you can come with me. So he gives him the power, just like Lord Krishna, before the Mahabharata, gives Arjuna Divya Drishti. It's not possible for everyone, but the Lord's grace is there, everything is possible. So here, Devrishi Narada makes the impossible possible for Indradumna, and Indradumna goes up to Brahmaloka, and Lord Brahma is having his audience, and then Indradumna requests Lord Brahma to come down to install the Lord in the temple. Brahma says, "Yes, I've been waiting for you, my child. I will go down, but you proceed ahead and make all the arrangements." He gives all instructions. Then Indradumna comes down to earth. Now in the meantime, what has happened, what is 1 hour by Brahma standards is many yugas have passed by. And the lineage of Indradumna has finished. And in the meantime, a lot of time has gone by, and the temple is again covered with sand because there's no worship. The temple has been completed, but no worship, and the temple is covered with sand. And in the meantime, the king of Utkal then, riding a horse, stumbles across his horse stumbles across something, and he finds that this is a spire of a temple. He takes out the then it's a huge temple, and he puts a Lord Madhava, small Madhava Murti, and starts worshipping. In the meantime, Indradumna comes from with Devrishi Narada and says, "Oh, this is my temple." So the king of Utkal, when he realized that this is Indradumna, and Devrishi Narada, naturally, they go, "Lord, you're most welcome." So then, this small Madhava Murti, I think the Madhava which we have now is because of the Madhava being worshipped by the king. His name was King Gala, the king of Utkal at that time. However, then the Devrishi Narada presides over everything and gets 3 chariots made, because the lords have manifested where? In the place which is now known as Gundicha temple. And from there the lords have to be brought to the main temple through chariots. So this, my friends, was the first Rath Yatra of the lords, from the place of birth to the place of residence, which is the Jagannath temple. So they brought on the chariots, and then they brought to the temple, and then Lord Brahma comes in his Pushpa, in his Vimana, and goes up to each of the chariots and recites beautiful shlokas to each of the lords. This is Lord Jagannath on his chariot, and so Lord Balabhadra is on his chariot, Devi Subhadra is on her chariot, and then the Pahandi takes place into the temple, and the lords are brought into the temple, and Lord Brahma performs the Abhishek ceremony. Now here, there is no Purana Pratishtha, because the lords are themselves Pratishthit. The lords are themselves living, so there is no ritual of infusing prana, because the Lord themselves are living. But the Abhishek is performed by Lord Brahma, and this is Indradumna standing here, and Devashi Narada here. And then what happens after Abhishek, when Lord Brahma touches the Kusa, chanting the Nrsimha mantra, touches the image of Lord Jagannath, suddenly Lord Jagannath's image, the four images merge into one and becomes a huge, fiery and fearsome Nrsimha Avatara. Nrsimha Avatara with Lord Balabhadra also here and Mahalakshmi here. So the three or the four merge into one, and Chakra Sudarshan here. They merge into huge Nrsimha and very fearsome. Everyone is frightened out there. And he's looking very fearsome and everything. The whole thing starts shaking and trembling and vibrating. And everyone is scared. And then Indradumna prays to Lord Brahma, "Oh Lord, what's this? I don't want to worship this fearsome Lord. I'm getting scared. So please bring the Lords back to their previous form." So then the Lord Brahma chants some more mantras and the Lords resume their previous form. Then Indradumna is perplexed. He said, "Oh my God, what was this? Why did the Lords take that very fearsome Nrsimha Avatara? Why that happened?" So then Brahma says, "Okay, son, this is why it is, why Lord revealed himself in this." Now, the mantra which Lord Brahma chanted is Nrsimha mantra. And to remind you that every time we have the consecration of Lord Jagannath during the full change of Lord Jagannath's form, which is called Navakalevara, which happened this last year, the new images are consecrated with the same Nrsimha mantra, which Lord Brahma chanted at the time of the initial conception. So here, Lord Brahma explains why the Lord took this form. Lord Brahma explains to Indradumna that, "Look, my son, thinking it is," now this is in Sanskrit, this is the English translation of it, "thinking it is a wooden image, O preeminent king, let there not be the idea in you that this is a mere image. This is verily the form of Supreme Brahma, Parama Brahma Akriti." Because this is not a form of Lord, but this is the Lord himself, Parama Brahma Akriti. Then he says, "As Parama Brahma takes away all sorrows, Khandanat Sarva Dukkhanam, and confers eternal bliss, Akhanda Ananda Danataha," which is what we were talking, which is what Sambit began with. That is the goal of our life. We want Akhanda Ananda, and it is the Lord himself who alone is the repository, who alone is the abode of this supreme bliss. Therefore, he is known as Daru. Because he is Akhanda Ananda Danataha and Khandanat Sarva Dukkhanam, he is known as Daru. According to the four Vedas, therefore, the Lord is manifest in the form of Daru or sacred wood. He is the creator of the entire universe. He has also created himself. So this is the secret of Lord Jagannatha or Purushottama Jagannatha, which is given to us by none other than Lord Brahma in his own words. Now, this is very significant. He is the creator of the entire universe, and he has also created himself. Now, if you recollect the old carpenter coming, who was this old carpenter? None other than the Lord himself. Okay? Now, which was this huge tree that appeared? None other than the Lord himself. In this same Skanda Purana, Lord Brahma reveals the secrets when the gods are complaining, "Oh, the lords have not, Madhav has disappeared, what's going to happen?" Lord Brahma says, "Don't worry, he's going to re-manifest again," and he tells that he's going to manifest in the form of a tree, and this tree is nothing but a portion of the Lord's Mahavishnu, which comes down in this form, manifests in this form. So, what do we have? The Lord Himself making Himself out of Himself. Is it not? That is your Lord Jagannath. Correct? So, this is amazing. This is amazing. And then Lord Brahma continues to explain the glory of the Lord. This Lord, that is this Lord Purushottama Jagannath, pervades all forms, Sarvam Rupamaya Hesha, and permeates all mantras, Sarva Mantramaya Prabhu. Means all the gods and goddesses that we have, known to human legend and heritage, whether it's in Greece or Rome or whatever you are in India, He is all those forms put together. Okay? And He is all the mantras, all the methods and procedures, rituals of worship. All those worships are actually going to Him alone. And His all those mantras are His only. In whatever way He is worshipped by anyone, be Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jain, or non-believer, accordingly does He confer fruits on him. Okay. Genealogy maintained in the Govardhana Pitha of Shankaracharya in Puri, Adi Shankaracharya appeared 2500 years back. Okay. So whatever it is, when Adi Shankaracharya came here, he worshipped Lord Jagannath in his own way. Sri Ramanujacharya came when this temple was being built, present temple in the 12th century, and he worshipped Lord Jagannath in his own way. Madhvacharya came, worshipped Lord Jagannath in his own Dvaita way. And so Vallabhacharya came and he worshipped Lord Jagannath in his own way. Sri Chaitanya came and worshipped Lord Jagannath as Sri Krishna. So all the great acharyas of our Hindu, heritage came and worshipped Lord Jagannath in their own tradition. So Lord Jagannath, just like pure gold, you can make the gold into necklace, you can make into anklet, you can make into ring, suiting your taste. So Lord Jagannath, suiting the taste of his devotee, becomes this or that in the same way. So not only our acharyas, I won't have time, I'll just mention it. There are scholars from America, from Europe, beginning with the Russian scholar in 1889, Notovich. They have given definite proof that Jesus Christ, the 13 years he was missing from the Middle East, traveled in search of the truth, and the destination was Jagannath Puri. They have traced his map in the route. Would you like to see that a little bit? Yes. Okay, I'll just skip that and go to that only. Or just to finish the story, Lord Jagannath, the king then worships Lord Jagannath and prays that, "Oh Lord, the only boon I ask, please tell me how I am to serve you." Now there are a lot of stories which we have heard that he asked that let there be no sons and progeny to claim this temple, that those are not there. The only boon that King Indradyumna asked was, "Oh Lord, how may I serve you?" Okay? So this is really the boon or our prayer to the Lord. If we are really worshippers of the Lord, we should only ask, "Oh Lord, how may I serve you? How can I seek your grace?" Instead of that, we ask, "Oh Lord, when my daughter is getting married, when do I get my promotion, when do my company succeed, etc." Okay. So the only thing worth asking for, "Oh Lord, how can I seek your grace?" Okay. Because by receiving the Lord's grace, what do we get? Akhanda Ananda Dhanada, what we are looking for. Okay? So this is the only thing the Lord, the King Indradyumna is asking the Lord here, and the Lord says, okay, no problem. And the Lord actually speaks. In the Shastra, it is Uvacha. The Lord, Bhagavad Uvacha, the Murti speaks, because he's a living God at that time. And he says that, okay, you perform these rituals of mine, you perform these festivals of mine. He gives a complete menu agenda to Indradyumna, which is being followed even now. You see, there will be no temple in the world now which has got such elaborate rituals and festivals as Jagannath Temple Puri. Why? Because he is Lord not of Puri, He is Lord not of Odisha, He is Lord not of India or Bharata, He is Lord of the entire creation. So just like for the, let's say, the President of India, or you say the President of Singapore, you have a lot of rituals and a lot of decorum and retinue. What would then be the case with the Lord of the universe, the President of the universe? So the whole thing was set up that time and that continues. What you are seeing now, at least it has been going on unchanged for the last 800 years. So the Lord is worshipped in that way, and the Lord Himself says that, look, because you are a true devotee, I will also say that I will not leave this place. Even if this temple is demolished or is broken, I will remain here for you. For the next 50 years of Brahma's life, I will remain in this form. Now we are where are we now? We are on the 51st year. For the next 49 years, that is known as the Parardha, the second half of Brahma's life. The first 50 years, the first Parardha, he was as Madhava. And the second Parardha of his life, Lord Brahma's life, he will be as Chaturda Vigraha. And then his Leela will go on, but I will remain here in this way. So then, of course, Indradamna, having gone to Brahmaloka, he is realized, he is a fully realized soul, and he's got no more any interest, because after all, his progeny is long gone. So he hands over the responsibility to King Gala, the king of Udra or Utkala, and he goes up to Brahmaloka, and then the tradition continues. So this actually concludes the Puranic narration, but then we have, then coming down to our historical side, we have Mahavir Jaina, and the Jainas also are worshipping Lord Jagannatha in their own tradition. Lord Balabhadra is Samyak Jnana, Devi Subhadra is Samyak Charitra, and Lord Jagannatha is Samyak Drishti. And Lord Gautam Buddha, the Buddhists also have adopted Lord Jagannatha as their own. And you have the Buddhists who look at Lord Jagannatha as Buddha, Lord Balabhadra as Dharma, and Devi Subhadra as Sangha. And also it will be interesting for you to know that the 5 first disciples of Lord Buddha, among them 2 were merchants of Odisha. One was Bhallika, other was Tapasu. And they spread Buddhism very extensively throughout Odisha. There were a lot of Buddhist viharas in Odisha. So, and also the belief is that sometime way back, way back, the sacred tooth relic of Lord Buddha, probably by Sanghamitra, Ashoka's daughter, someone, was brought to Odisha and kept in Puri. And then from there, later on it was taken to Kandy in Sri Lanka, where it is now. So then we had Ashoka who came and, cut a long story short, he came to the conclusion of his imperialism by this famous war of Kalinga in 261 BC, where he gave up his conquest, there was so much bloodshed, and he took to spreading Dharma or Buddhist religion, and that's how Buddhism came to Southeast Asia. It was basically Ashoka and his Buddhism promotion which brought Buddhism to all over eastern half of the globe, as far as Japan. And that happened because of this very momentous incident in Odisha. And then we have a very famous emperor of Kalinga called Kharavela in the 1st century BC, who was a Jaina king who lived in these rock caves, which is in the outskirts of Bhubaneswar, called Khandagiri Udayagiri, and was a great king. But again, here about Lord Jagannath directly we don't have evidence, but as I said, the Jainas would worship Lord Jagannatha as well. Then we come to the first century, the time of Christ. As I was mentioning, it's very interesting that you can see, if you can get these books, The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ in 1894 by this Russian traveler, Notovich. And these are all the various books which speak about the missing, I think 13 years or something of the life of Christ. When he was age 13, we do not know about him in the Middle East, and that's the time he spends traveling to India and then back again. and it's very interesting. This particular book here. The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, written in 1907 by Levi Dowling. Now, Levi Dowling is, very interestingly, a parish priest of America. He's a Christian priest. And he writes that there was a prince of Odisha. Now, as you know, Odisha and Kalinga had very strong maritime activities both in the east, covering Singapore and Java, Sumatra, Bali, and also with the west, with the Middle East. So he writes that during the feast of Passover in Jerusalem, this prince of Odisha sees a young boy speaking words of wisdom with the rabbis. Rabbis are the Jewish priests in the temple, a Jewish temple. And he's impressed and he invites this young boy to come to the east where this knowledge is. And so this prince of Odisha brings the young boy to the east. So this is written by this Christian father, and the young Jesus spends 3 years in Puri learning the Vedas. In the temple of Jagannath is written there. Very interesting. Then he goes to Nalanda, Rajgriha, Banaras, and Kashmir. Kashmir Shaivism was very strong then, and goes back to the. And then after resurrection, again he comes back to this way, and the scholars say the last point where he actually gave up his body was Srinagar, where his tomb is, if those who have been there could see. So these are very interesting things which shows these are the books actually. This is the first book which was written, this is the first evidence of Christ in India, written by this Russian scholar, Russian traveler, who went to the Hemis monastery in Ladakh. And there the monks, the lamas said that, well, your Christ came here. So then they showed him the Pali writings, the manuscripts, and he wrote it, and he took copies of it and wanted to publish it. Naturally, the Vatican would not permit, and the Vatican said that if you do this, we're going to throw you out. But he was a Russian, so he didn't bother, and he went and published it. And then this is the Aquarian Gospel, and these are the books which are more recently done, but they all say about these things. Very interesting. And this is the map given in the books. The research scholar says these are the routes which are shown, and the ultimate destination here is Jagannath, is Puri. Okay, this is to show what great heritage you have, and the learning of Christ was the learning of our Vedas. Okay, so then we'll just skip this. In history, we have the Lord's Leelas which go on, and I will just skip all this. This is Adi Shankaracharya, who comes to Puri, established Govardhan Matha, and all these things go on. So we'll just skip this and wind it up, I think. So this is a whole thing which is very, very interesting. But I hope that in this small presentation you could get an inkling of who this Lord Jagannatha is. There's a whole half, I've only covered half of it, but there's a whole half left which I will not do this time. Okay? So thank you very much, and are there any questions on these quick questions? We'll keep questions for next time, okay? Are there any questions? We'll keep questions for next time because it's very late. And I think all of you are invited for Prasadam. And before I conclude, I would like to release a small book which has been printed for all of you. As you are leaving, please collect this little booklet. Where is the book? Please bring it here. As you're leaving, please collect this book, and what I have not said now, or I have not had time to say, you will read from this little book. This book is called The Tradition of Lord Jagannath. Thank you. So you will get your free copy as you're leaving this hall, and whatever I could not say is given here. There's a lot that could not be said. So you please go through this, and hopefully this will be the commencement of your journey to the abode of Lord Jagannath. And please remember that Lord Jagannath is within you, within each one of you. And the journey has to be an inward journey. The quest has to be inward. The outward quest is a reflection of the true journey, which is the inward quest. So please start on that quest and you'll find the Lord within you. And when you find the Lord within you, you will also find Him everywhere outside of you. Thank you very much. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. I thank all of you for your patience.